I had a question. What motivates you to include publishing the Epstein list as an aspect of your campaign? And is a part of this posture influenced by sympathy with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein? Thank you.
Yes is the answer to your latter question, but it was part of a broader vision in this country, a radical idea that we have a government that actually just tells the truth to its people again. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking? You're 17.
Yeah.
You'll be 18 before November?
Yeah.
You can vote at the caucus. And I hope you do. But I think that it's your generation it's our generation in many ways. I grew up into a generation as well where our government has systematically lied to us for at least a couple of decades, as long as I can remember, about the basis for the 2008 financial crisis bailouts, about the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that never was, about the origin of COVID-19. You're told that it didn't start in a lab and you're censored if you said it, before we now know that it did. About the Hunter Biden laptop story on the eve of the last election, dismissed by 50 intelligence officials in the U.S., dismissing it as Russian disinformation before after the election we learned it was true. The truth about what happened on January 6th, which only came out years later, video footage that wasn't released. The truth of how our own money is being spent in Ukraine. The truth about the Jeffrey Epstein client list, which I do not believe we've received. The truth about the Nashville transgender shooter manifesto, which we were lied to before it was leaked. We the people deserve a government that just tells us the truth again. And the reason people don't trust the government anymore is actually the government doesn't trust the people with the truth. Trust is a two-way relationship. And so I think two things need to happen in this country for us to rebuild trust in this country. I think one starts with the government, and I'm going to keep my promise on that. We're going to go back. As long as I've been an adult, certainly for this century, where have we lied to the people? The people have a sense that we've lied about matters that are important to the public. Where are we lying right now? And open the kimono and say, here's the truth. I know it's ugly and people before believed that you couldn't handle it, but my conviction is we the people can handle the truth. We the people demand the truth. We require the truth. We got to see it to ever be able to fix it. That's what I'm going to give you on behalf of the government. And even though it's not my personal fault, I'll be the president when I say this, we are sorry to our citizens for betraying your trust for as long as I can remember. And I hope something then happens. I hope members of the media, at least one, steps up and says the same thing, looks their audience in the camera and says, you know what, we played interference for the government. We lied to you about the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, about the COVID origin, about the truth of what really was going on with each of the foreign wars that we've entered on false premises over the course of the last 25 years. Go straight down the list and say, you know what, we weren't honest with you either. Here's what went wrong. Here's how we held the people who lied to you accountable. We're sorry, and here's how we'll ensure that something like that never happens again. Those two things happen, we're well on our way to reuniting this country. I think 80% of us in this country agree on the basic rules of the road. Not what the media tells you, not what social media looks like, but actual citizens. And that's the beauty of this process. I mean, even 2 nights ago, we had protesters at one of our events. We've had protesters barge into multiple of my events throughout this process. My rule of thumb, if it happens right here, as long as it's not cynical, paid-for people, but actual earnest people that have a view to share, we'll give them the mic and make their view known as long as they're able to sit down and be respectful of everybody else. 80% of our country shares the basic values in common, and half the 20% are people younger than me who never learned those ideals in the first place. I think we can bring them along too. That's how we're going to reunite this country, but the first step is we have to know that we're not being systematically lied to, and I'm sorry to say right now we are. And if there's one thing I get done as your next president, it'll be to shut down that deep state and make sure we the people, again, have the truth, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. And so it's my care for the victims there, but it's also my care beyond that for this country to make sure we restore the truth in our government again. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. We'll come to this young woman right here.